Hello everybody, it is Kim from Tabletop Gaming Guild and I am here today to review for you Charty Party. This is the all ages edition, so especially geared toward people ages 10 to 18, and it takes about 30 to 90 minutes to play depending on how many people you have. So let's go ahead and head down to the tabletop and take a look at it. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and take a look at how this game works. So it is super easy to learn. What happens is everybody takes 7 of these cards, and holds them in their hand. Then whoever is the judge for the particular round flips over one of the white cards and then interprets it for the players. So if I were the judge, I would say this is a chart that shows that something increases the more hours that one spends per day online. Then the remaining players would search through their cards and try to find the card that will make the funniest element to put on the y-axis. Alrighty, so for example, perhaps somebody is going to play something like self-conscious about how you look when angry. Another person is going to play how much you're rewarded for being very quiet. And a third person is going to say the moldiness of your fridge. So again, as you can see, these go along the y-axis here. So whoever the judge is selects the card that they find to be the funniest. And I'm going to select this one. These cards go in the discard pile. The person who played this card will keep this in front of them. And once they hit 5 of those cards, or whoever hits 5 of those cards first, will win. Pretty straightforward directions. But one thing that this game has that is rather unique are classroom activities for teachers. So I would like to share a little bit of that with you. Some of those activities that, as a classroom teacher, you could do with your students. So the first activity is called Explain the Scenario. So in this activity, the teacher would provide a chart, and the students would describe what's going on. So in this chart, it looks as though something seems to escalate at an extraordinary level whenever one is in middle school. Then, as the students would select a card from their hand to play, whatever card it is that they select, they would have to write a paragraph to explain why this card makes sense. So for example, if a student were to play this card on the y-axis, anxiety at having to pick your own group for a project. As we all know, in middle school, that anxiety skyrockets for various reasons, like maybe I don't like that boy, or I have a crush on this girl, or all sorts of other reasons that cause middle schoolers to have high anxiety. They would also have to explain why their card is funny. And they would also, in that paragraph, need to explain if perhaps the data were different, would it make as much sense? So for example, if this graph had the large in the high school range, would that have made as much sense? And you could make an argument that perhaps it would. And then the student could then go on to explain that in preschool, this wouldn't make nearly as much sense because there probably aren't a lot of preschool group projects. So that's activity 1 that students could use in the classroom. Activity 2 involves the teacher, again, selecting a chart, and then the teacher would select 4 orange cards. So again, the students would figure out what the chart means, and then would select several cards. Now I'm only going to do 2 just for the purpose of the demo, but could select up to 4 cards, and then students would have to explain which one of the cards belongs and which one doesn't. And then have to explain why. The student could then go on to explain if we change the data points, how could we change them so the other card then begins to make sense. So that's option 2. A third activity that the students could participate in is, once we've played a round and there is a winner, a winning card, students would then consider how you would gather this data. What kind of students would you have to ask? What kind of people would you have to ask? How would you collect the data? Those are all questions that they could consider. And then the final activity, I think this one's super neat, would be to take a graph and ask students how could this data be made to look misleading? So what would we put on the y-axis that would make this data appear to be misleading? And if you go on to the website chartypartygame.com/teacher notes, there are way more resources on these activities. So let me bring you back up from the tabletop and I can give you some final thoughts. So final thoughts on Charty Party. Let me say, if I were a math teacher, I would be taking this right into my classroom as soon as possible, anytime we were doing any sort of graphing. I think it would be a super fun way to get kids involved in the graphing process and see that graphs can be funny and math can be fun. I also love the specific classroom activities that are designed for teachers. These could definitely fill up, a 40-minute class period, having your students do something like this together. No matter how large or small your class size is, you could divide the decks very easily into small groups, or depending on your class size, perhaps do it as one whole group together. I also think it would be really good for economics teachers. The graphs that are used definitely could be something that you could incorporate into your classroom as well. So thank you so much for tuning into our show. If you like our content, please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you for being a loyal viewer. And as always, if there are any videos, if there are any games that you think I would enjoy reviewing, go ahead and drop those down into the comments. And have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.